それでは時間となります。
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to start the plenary session on resilience, key elements for building sustainable society. The speakers are already seated on the stage. The moderator of the session will be served by Professor Takemoto, a senior fellow. So I would like to give the floor to Mr. Takemoto.
ただいまご紹介いただきました竹本で。
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Takemoto. The theme of this the session is the key element for the building sustainable society, the resilience. The term resilience, as was mentioned during the morning session by Professor Hamanaka, it is very hard to translate into Japanese, but in this session, resilience is identified as one of the key elements of sustainable development, to say with the understanding that it is a key to any the climate change. And at the 3/11, Japan was hard hit by the disasters. And how will we be able to minimize the damages and how to recover and reconstruct from the disaster? And we would like to identify the resilience in those terms. At the Rio Plus 20, which was held in June, the last the month, the resilience was taken up as something indispensable in order to grapple with climate change, based upon the debate at Rio Plus 20, as well as the accident that happened in Fukushima for the nuclear power plant. How to build the resilience? How can the various stakeholders be able to address this theme of resilience? That is the perspective in which we would like to be engaged in good discussion. I would like to thank the three distinguished panelists who have been gracious enough to share with us their valuable time. Professor Dr. Klaus Tepfer, Executive Director for Institute for Advanced Sustainability Studies. And we also have Professor Kazuhiko Takeuchi, the Vice Rector of the UNU, and Ms. Tomoko Nishimoto, the Director of Division of Regional Cooperation of UNEP. These are the three distinguished panelists. May I first of all ask the first keynote speaker, may I introduce the Professor Dr. Klaus Tepfer. I don't need any detailed introduction. He was the very first Minister for Environment in Germany, which was newly established after the Chernobyl incident, and he was very, very active in the environmental arena. And he was the chair of the Ethics Commission on a Safe Energy Supply, which was established after the Fukushima incident, which encompassed indeed broad-ranged issues to do with the nuclear energy. And just last week, he has visited the Fukushima to be engaged in the various discussion during workshops as well as symposium. And he has also visited the affected sites. Today's theme for his presentation is Resilient Societies, the Energy Change in Germany.
Behind the lady. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues, first and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to be invited again to come to ISAP. I was last year here as well, and I learned a lot of the wisdom, and I tried to do the same this year. It's true, I had the chance to be for 2 days before coming today to Yokohama in Fukushima, and we had a lot of good information, especially in the day we had to spend in the field, so in the evacuated areas. It was really a very important and helpful information. Thank you very much for this. I was asked to give some information concerning key elements for building a sustainable society. And one element for sure is energy. I was responsible for 8 years for the United Nations Environment Programme for UNEP. And UNEP is headquartered in the middle of Africa, in Nairobi, in Kenya. And I learned in those days that the first condition of poverty is energy poverty. In this country where I lived, only some 10% of the population had access to energy services. And you may imagine that this is one of the main blocking points for development. Therefore, it was very important for us to consider these global recommendations. What we learned in one of our studies together with altogether 15 Nobel laureates. And they mentioned, if you can see, ensuring that some 9 billion people can live a decent life requires above all access to affordable, sustainable, reliable energy services, which are currently based almost exclusively on fossil fuels. So is that the perspective or not? Can we expect that up to 9 billion people can change their life on this basis? This was the question, and we asked again in the very beginning of our discussion on energy and the consequences of Fukushima event, what are the common denominators of current crisis, or what undermines society's resilience? The first, I believe, is that we have a dictate of short-termism in the world. We are always externalizing costs of all kinds in the future, with the consequences that we are not going in the right way with the development of technology as behavior of the people living now. You can go through all the crises, will again and again have the same consequence. It is a result of this dictate of short-termism. The crisis is something like the oath of disclosure of short-termism. Sustainable development means to prolongate the decision perspective to the medium and long-term consequences. And very closely linked with this dictate of short-termism, we believe we have something like there is no alternative philosophy. The TINA consequence, you know, TINA was a famous additional name of the Iron Lady in London in those days. She always mentioned there is no alternative. And honestly, if I go back to my country, the bad word of the year 2010 was there is no alternative. And if you go a little bit more on this, then you can see that this has huge consequences. The shorter you are, the less you have alternatives. Because on the short term, everything is short term and is fixed. On the medium and long term, you can have variable situations. So our main intention was always starting after the Chernobyl accident, can we develop alternatives? Is that possible? Can we come out of this dictate of short-termism with a TINA as a consequence? This, I believe, is a background in only some words. I know time is very limited. If you see this with regard to some global parameters, lots of those are always mentioned, the increase of population altogether. By the way, the increase is very divided in this world, as you know. There are quite a number of so-called developed countries. There's a decrease of population. My country, Germany, is one of those. We will have something like 12 million people less if there's no change. Our host country, Japan, we learned it yesterday evening, has the same consequences, so I could invite Pashauri also to send some information to Germany with regard to this topic. So we see these are those developments, but if you see some more, I only mentioned some. Yes, we have an increase of population, but the main topic also with regard to energy and resources is the fact that we will have 3 billion more middle-class consumers by 2030, 3 billion more. This is really the change of the consumption pattern, especially also the diet, with huge consequences. You can see the others. I only want to underline also that with regard to fossil fuels, the low-hanging fruits are always harvested. So you are coming in more difficult and more expensive situations to have the access to fossil fuels. Maybe there's a change now for the experts here, a change with regard to the gas exploration, because we have now the shale gas situation where they are really a game changer in the gas market. Only want to mention this.